Good morning. We are about to head to Kansas. It's a 2-day trip. We will stop off tonight, and tomorrow we will we'll do an interview with Gehring, who has been in the bison world for a very long time. I met him once before, but I think we're ready for the next kickoff and stint of this spring into summer / I don't know. It's going to be an adventure trip. And you're coming along with us.
She's a sunset on an Oklahoma skyline. She's a wildflower on a snow-covered mountainside. Her love's like Medicine Creek flowing through my heart, saving me. I'm coming home.
Good morning. We made it to Kansas. It's a bit chilly, but we are going to see what Dick Gehring has going on at Black Kettle Buffalo. Dick has been recognized for his contributions to the bison world through mentorship and his willingness to help further along the success of bison existing on this landscape. So I'm excited to see what he has to say.
I'm coming home. I'm coming home to my Wichita Wild Rose. To my Wichita Wild Rose.
When we rotate pastures to the west, that's the gate they go through. So sometimes when you drive down here and come in, they think it might be time to move and they come running.
Oh.
So rather than leave it open, we'll just
Close her back up.
Yep.
Just in case.
Just in case. I'm Dick Gehring, Black Kettle Buffalo here in Moundrige, Kansas, kind of in the center of the state. We've been doing this, messing with these animals since about 1980. When we started, not when we started, but after a number of years, we got into the intensive rotational grazing deal and created paddocks. We went down that whole road, which probably in of itself is an extremely valuable tool for the grass. It's an amazing what it does for the grass and the ground. A lot of the warm season grass that we had here, this was all farm ground, and so it had to get replanted. It's not native prairie anymore. And by doing that, allowing that rest and rehab cycle to happen is awesome. I cringe sometimes when, we have seminars on that and we have people talking about, the tighter we make it, the better it gets. They start using words like, optimizing and maximizing, which is great. That's exactly what it will do. It will enable you to grow a whole lot more grass. to me, the take-home message is not that. Whatever the take-home message is, the message received by many folks in that scenario is that I'm grazing more grass, and so now I can have more animals. That is to me is not a good take-home message. If you're going to get more animals, then you're just going to be right back to where you were. You did this process to begin with because you were short on grass. You weren't getting the gains that you were looking for. And so you did this process, and now you're growing more grass. So if automatically you bring more animals out here, you're going to be in the same boat you were in before. You're just going to have more animals doing it. The take-home message that I'd like them to receive is that I'm raising more grass. I'm going to have more available for mom. Mom's going to flourish. Mom's going to do great. So the calves are going to do great. And the added income for a bigger calf is going to be a payoff. And all of the money that you were having to put out there in the form of extra protein, extra grass, extra feed, whatever that is, it's no longer needed because now the ground's taking care of mom. That's where the advantage is. But we're human, and sometimes we just can't help ourselves. We can't get out of our own way. We first started, I had a meat locker here in town, and it was a small operation. And Ray Smith, a fellow from Moundrige, Kansas, that brought some animals for us to process for him. And interesting guy, interesting animal. And this seemed like to be something that was intrigued us quite a bit. So we ended up getting a few to run through there, and honestly, it started a little bit out to be somewhat of a monetary thing. And I'm sure as you've traveled the world, you've seen all different kinds of walks here that are in this business. It almost always becomes much greater than a money thing. As a matter of fact, it becomes a passion and a part of the life, and the money takes the back seat. To everybody but the banker. Like I said before, this is one of the most adaptable animals I've ever seen. They just don't get hung up on the small stuff. If they sense that there's there's a game afoot, then they can get hung up on the small things. But for the most part, pretty easy going. And this is kind of what I was talking about. If you come out here and depending on how you present yourself, everything is good. If you come out here by yourself, even if you're on foot, which might not be the smartest thing in the world, but you come out here and just kind of mind your own business, check water, do your thing, they don't pay any attention. You get 2 or 3 people walking out here towards them, suddenly they start to recognize that as maybe 2 or 3 wolves, and
Predatory pack kind of.
yeah, and things kind of can unravel pretty quickly. So we got a mix of, some older cows, mostly younger cows, and then we've got a number of 2-year-olds that are coming twos, just turning 2 now, that should get bred this year for the first time. She's losing her plug, getting ready to drop a calf here probably tomorrow, I would say, maybe. This group is just getting started. We've got, 4 or 5 calves born. There's a few in here that were last year fall calves. Okay. So they're brown and bigger, but yeah, this.
What's your average age that you keep here?
Well, we kind of keep a little of everything. So, most of the bigger group will probably be in the 4 to 15-year-old, 4 to 15-year-old range, but we try and save, a few, like 2 or 3 of the best each year, and replace 2 or 3 that they're pretty much run the course and they're done. and it creates a much better dynamic,
1, 2,
a much better herd dynamic than,
8, 9, 10.
than we bought all the same age and they're all alike. But
Well, there's the baby. No, there's several. Look at them.
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
One of the interesting things we'll find a lot of times, especially like out at the basin where we're not there very often, we're not there every day. When you show up there and you see 2 or 3 moms run off with their calves, that's something they do, and I believe it's what they do to teach the calf that there's danger, let's go. I even noticed that here at home when, say, we'd be supplemental feeding every day and they would be coming in to get it. When they'd have a newborn, Mom would bring that baby to the gate, and as soon as they got to it, if I was already there feeding, as soon as they got to it, she'd take off and run. She'd do that 3 days in a row. And typically on the 4th day or the 5th day, she'd go ahead and come in, and that calf would stand at the gate. She taught it that this is not necessarily a good thing. You need to be wise and you need to be careful. And that calf would be skeptical as can be for another 2 or 3 days. I just saw that play out time and time and time again. And they teach them. They teach them well.
And young.
Yes, from the get-go. Now that cow right there, there's nothing hanging out, but you can see how she's springing.
Oh, yeah, she's
She's getting ready. A lot of people ask, how long will that be? Well, these gals are all different.
Yeah.
I mean,
ladies in general.
Because sometimes, that's actually pretty pronounced.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's not that much. We had one cow that she never sprung. She would almost like giddy faced. It would like get really flat and jello-y, but it only stuck out maybe that far. But when she got to that point, you're going to have a calf tomorrow. Just like clockwork. And she's the only one that's like that. Yeah, the only one like that I knew of. But amazing. Right there, 126. Yep, when that's happening, I call that losing the plug. It's just kind of, not necessarily water broke yet, but we'll see that anywhere from, a day or 2 to a week. This is probably as rough as they'll look all year long. They're getting ready to do the major part of their shedding, and yeah.
So you had to reseed all of this. What did you choose for your seeding?
Well, this particular patch is brome, and it's one of the patches that I wish that we'd have never planted. We did everything else in warm season. Basically native grass. It's just, you can't hardly call it native. We're only missing about 100 species of forage sedges and grasses to call it a native prairie. But it's the warm season grass. It's what they really, evolved with. That stuff is they are so in tune to that, it works out really well. Well, this stuff is really lush and green this time of year, early in the spring. And then, it lasts a short time, and then it's dormant. By the middle of May, typically this stuff is starting to turn hard, and if you don't get it like put up for hay or whatever, you're kind of missing out. Well, in the fall, you'll get another cool down. It's the weather starts to get cooler, and you'll get some moisture, and you'll get this growth of cool season grass. And so if you're doing rotational grazing, and it fits into that plan really well. Although I noticed that something was not right, and it took me a number of years to figure it out, but I figured out these gals go dormant in the grass, and just like everything, that light switch doesn't get turned off or turned on in a day. It's a progression of things. Well, so here we are. They're getting ready. They're packing fat stores on for the winter. They're on warm season grass. They're getting ready for the winter. They're, everything's slowing down. They're in lazy mode. They're just laying around doing nothing. And I turn them out on this brome then because, hey, why wouldn't I, utilize this to stretch the grass season out that much further? Well, it went from lazy mode to being vacuum sweepers. I mean, they went after this like you can't believe. And then it's gone. Then it's done. Well, I don't know if there's any truth to this or not, but I think we were kicking them out of that dormancy mode and into grow mode and go in, like the spring. And then boom, they don't have it. And now we're in the dead of winter. And when I stopped doing that, I saw a marked difference in how they fared through the winter and how things worked. And so this fall, I won't turn them on this until we have 2 good hard freezes on it. And then I'll winter them out here. They'll do really well on this grass, but it's kind of got to be on on their terms, if you will, instead of what works for, in my mind.
Right.
We've got a lot of a diversity of genetics here. We've got a number of, Wolverine cows, kind of bulls from a lot of different areas. The big bull out here is a product of some Ivan Stomp cows I bought out of Humboldt, Saskatchewan. And really big, robust animals, probably almost too big for this area. Our grass isn't quite that strong, but one thing we were looking for was how much meat was on the bone. And, size was only one part of it, but, the percentage of retail sale was the other. And what I found is those cows that came here that went out to the basin, they did just fine. That grass is hard enough out there and it's strong enough out there. They never missed a lick. The ones that came here, they had a little bit of a tough go for a while. They adapted to it and they're doing well. And probably we've shrunk down a little bit in size, but most of these cows are, 1,250 pounds, and it's sustainable. I mean, we're trying to do let the grass take care of them, stock it so that we don't have to do much supplemental feeding in the wintertime. And that's working out pretty well. The one challenge we have in this area is because we don't have a lot of native grasses or native pastures. We've got native grasses, we don't have native pastures. We're missing some key components to that ecosystem throughout the winter, and so we've got to do a little bit of supplemental feeding, but we've kind of got it to where it's relatively inexpensive because it's in the form of Perrier that is native, and we put that up early, and so we're capturing all the nutrient we can out of it, and that those fields are really starting to flourish as well, because by putting it up early, that rebounds, grows back, and so it's ready to go next year when spring comes. It's already grown back, a foot and a half tall, and so it's just a matter of greening up and going.
And what do you mean the Wolverine? What was that? What is that?
Wolverine is Mark Silser and C. Stumborg. They're also out of Humboldt, Saskatchewan. They've got a pretty good breeding program. They've utilized the NABR, North American Bison Registry, doing some tracking, some animal tracking, genetic tracking, and doing quite a bit of single siring, hand selection. Anyway, they've got some really good genetics, and we went after that. That big old bull came out of the basin. He was one that was born here, but was out of a stomp cow from up in Canada. And I always say when the names goes on, the animal's common sense goes right out the window, because you get attached and you make poor decisions based on what you want and not what needs to happen.
Yeah.
We actually call him Phoenix. He was in we had 18 bulls in the Sandhills just cultivating them to be herd bull prospects, and he was one of them. And they survived, all but 5 survived the fire. His ear tag completely curled up from the heat. That's how hot it got. But he came through and did really well. We took him out there, and he's been out there quite a while.
He's pretty. Perfect.
Yeah.
Handsome.
Yeah, good looking bull. One we have out there now is one that was born there. He hasn't
Known anything
left.
different?
And most of what out there now has been born there, which is what we were after. We were kind of after our own offspring and trying to figure out what that is. I think I'm going to leave her alone and figure out tomorrow. She probably got punched by one of the nasty old cows. Sometimes they don't play well in the sandbox together.
Yeah. They're all like, what are you guys doing?
Do what?
They're all curious about what we're doing.
Yeah, if you're, all these T-posts, we had this broke into, this is a 50-acre patch. We had this broke into 6 different paddocks for that rotational grazing. It worked really good, but it was a little tight for them. And they do such a good job of rotating themselves. One guy that keeps a set of cows for us over by Topeka, he does a really good job of rotating them using patch burning. Instead of putting up fences, he just burns a portion. And next year he'll burn a different portion. And the next year he'll burn a different portion. And they'll hit those really hard when that, that new growth comes. They'll hit it pretty hard. And
which compacts the ground real nicely, or aerates it real well.
Right. And kind of almost overdo it, but it allows those other ones to time to rebound and regrow. And so we've pulled all the fences. I haven't pulled the T-post yet. I don't know why. Probably just need to get it done, because I don't really see us redoing it. That's kind of one of those things where, we learned. They know better than we do. We just have to give them the opportunity to teach us, and we have to be smart enough to listen. And sometimes it takes a while to catch on to and to listen. But
Well, it's interesting that you're keeping a good dynamic of mix of the ages, because really what you were talking about this a little bit before, that you're going to be out chatting about genetics.
About confirmation.
Yeah, confirmation. So is that anything, are you also doing that with this herd here? Are you working confirmation here?
we are
Hang on, I should probably get some of this.
Hammering that really hard. One of the things that we have to be really careful about is that when we do single siring, when we do selective breeding, when we hand pick what we're going to keep and what we're going to propagate, we got to be really careful that we're paying attention. We need to make sure we're paying attention to not propagate some traits that you don't want. We can't get so fixated on something that we want that we're not paying attention to the whole animal. And sometimes you do some breeding. Sometimes the trait selection maybe hits too close to home, and you get some traits that are not desirable, that are actually harmful for the animal, and you got to make sure that you're not, passing that along, enabling that to be passed along. So we're always looking for that. One of the things we've spent some time doing is looking at the old pictures, the Bronx Zoo and the Yellowstone, and wherever there were, some of those animals that were retained. Some of the earliest photos that we had, and we look at those to to pick out those traits that are, that are present, and try to mimic that. And if we're getting away from that, then we change course. But we're one of the biggest problems that we're seeing some of is I can't think of the technical name of it, but their hind legs, the joints are getting have a problem. Some of them can have a problem, and I mean, I can show it to you better than I can talk about it, but I don't know, exactly where it comes from. At first we thought, well, it's an inbreeding thing. Well, I'm not. I think it can be, but it can also be an animal that's pushed a little too hard. It can, the joints can grow kind of funny. It can also be just a trait selection at the time of, when the genome is made, and that Mother Nature has a way of weeding those out if she has anything to say about it. So, survival of the fittest. And if you're in a herd where you're subject to predators that can take out, they're not prejudiced against anything. They only look for a cheap meal, an easy one. And so the slowest ones are going to be the ones that get taken down. The ones that are injured a little bit or compromised in some way, they're going to be the ones that get taken out. Well, when that happens, they're no longer contributing to the gene pool. But the ones that are put together right, that are healthy and agile and fast and strong, they're the ones that are going to do the breeding and do the propagating. He just walked off. Kind of, he'd be a great one to talk about, but on the big bulls like that, we're looking for the height and width and depth and sizes and everything. We look at all those things because we're selling meat, but in the end of the day, we are also looking at the balance. We try to find animals that, in spite of growing to the size that we like to see, they are retaining their athleticism. They're retaining their ability to get around and to move and not become, some domesticated thing that has to be taken care of. Because that's one of the greatest things about this animal is all we have to do is provide enough, for them and get out of the way. They take care of themselves, and they do a lot better job if we're not sticking our nose in their business. They do it really well. And so we don't want ever to ruin that. We don't want to take that ability away from them. We want that to be, an ongoing thing. That's one of the neat things about this animal is how they're so resilient. They can bounce back from about anything, and they're so in tune to what's supposed to be here. If you look over there, there's a pine tree that was growing.
I see it.
And it's just on the other side of these two that are at this tank. But the bull's over there working it over, and it doesn't belong here. I don't know, if it knows it or if it's just something that's in that pine tree, that evergreen that they don't like, but he's over there just destroying it. I don't know if you can see that. They do a great job of clearing out a pasture of unwanted species. They do an unbelievable job of eating different varieties of grasses. Bindweed is actually at the right time of the year. If it's not too mature, they will eat it to the point of it won't grow back. As long as they can catch it early, they'll eat it down to the ground to where it doesn't go to seed, and so eventually it goes away. That's a pretty big plus when they're out there taking care of weeds for you. But
yeah, definitely.
So you see the hind hock, like look elbow looking point?
Yeah.
Okay. From that point down to the ankle, or the fetlock, should be a straight plane. And she is. I think everything out here will be. We've culled real hard to make sure that that's not an issue. But that's one of those confirmation things that we're looking at. I can show you, when we get back to the yard, I can show you a calf that I think it was because of nitrates in the feed where it came from that caused it. But that's a good set of hind legs. I mean, that's what we're looking for. It should be point A to point C, but when we get back to the yard, that animal will be a point A to B to C.
Oh.
And should be a non-articulating joint, and it's actually a joint where we go through on the slaughter floor to take the leg off. You can do that with a knife. You don't need a saw, but you go right through that joint, and that's where they hang. You know how they hang up on the rail. But it's literally like this and then that instead of just that.
Interesting.
And it's crippling. And this guy's really bad, and you'll see what I'm talking about by crippling. It completely changes the trajectory of the leg, and the pressure that gets put on that joint is phenomenal. He's not great big, but we'll probably slaughter him fairly quickly, because the bigger he gets, the harder that's going to be on that joint. And he's already showing signs of not wanting to walk a lot. So, like I was saying earlier, you get out in Mother Nature, he'd be the first one, picked off. So that, by getting rid of the predators and by putting up the fence, we have to be the smart predators. We have to be the ones that are doing the natural selection and not just something that we're after. So. Can you see that? He's got just terrible from point A to B, and then it's so bad that he walks almost on his toes because everything's so jacked up.
He's little too.
It's hard to kind of show you pictures and where you got a close up, but that guy, and then see how far underneath his belly his feet are?
Yeah.
Well, it's because that's that. Well, if this is the normal stance, it's bent here so bad that this is the same, but from here to here, this would be up here.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Interesting.
And a lot of times you'll see them stand like that, and it's to take the pressure off.